We are back for Ep.2, ladies and gentlemen, of Birds vs. Boys. You have me, KMess, and I'm alongside my co-host, the one and only Aidan Powers. And going into this second recording of the podcast, we thought we got not much to talk about with football right now. And then, bam, everything happened. So we are going to start right from the jump. Aidan, how you doing, my friend?
I am good. We're getting closer to football season, and yet we're also getting further away from football season with opt-outs, coronavirus. In our first episode, we said we'd love to do this around the NFL segment, but also our Around the NFL segment is just going to be talking about coronavirus for the next month.
So should we just call it like around coronavirus?
Around the coronavirus pandemic. Until the season actually starts, if it does, hopefully, we should just call it around the coronavirus pandemic.
After our last podcast last week, I sent a tweet. I was like, "Dear baby Jesus, please let us have football," because I don't know how many plaid couple pictures that apple picking every Saturday and Sunday I can take on my timeline.
Yeah, the girlfriends and relationships are going to run out of cliche fall Instagram captions by like October 12th if there's no football.
So if there's anything else, like we need football just because of that. That's our fallback. But
you can't do it 4 straight weekends in October. Just can't.
God, please, no. Especially, I mean, we'll have the Masters and hopefully baseball. Probably not. But we need,
even worse off.
We need football. But I mean, like you said, coronavirus is hitting hard and hitting often, and you guys got hit pretty hard just yesterday. Doug Peterson, probably the biggest name, second coach in the NFL to get it, but Sean Payton had it so long ago. So Doug Peterson, man, along with Lane Johnson.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. That Doug Peterson, that one was really shocking. The Lane Johnson one wasn't that shocking because he hosted an offensive lineman camp, brought in everybody from all over the country.
Smart.
And during a pandemic. So
Smart.
Him showing up was not shocking. The Doug Peterson one shocked me. And when the news broke, I was driving home from the beach. And, when you're in those long car rides, it's one of the few times anymore where you're like alone with your thoughts. Like you're not really looking at your phone. You don't have anyone around. So I was just thinking of like all the negative reasons why Doug Peterson getting coronavirus is bad for the Eagles. I'd go miles and then I'd be like, and another reason why that's bad, just to myself.
Give me all of them.
I can, there is such a huge list. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. But the most obvious one, and any team can relate to this, is now the Eagles are in a captainless ship.
Yes.
They don't have their head coach. Going back to when everybody was in school, did you ever have a productive day with a substitute teacher?
No.
Like, did you ever walk into class and you're like, oh, a sub, I'm going to be extra motivated today?
No, you may be too young for this, but the best days were the subs when they wheeled in the TV it was either the VHS or the DVD player. And it game over. Like there was no work getting done. I was kicking up and I was watching a movie. That was it. I'm not getting work done.
Exactly. The Eagles just wheeled in Deuce Staley on a VHS tape. That's what they did.
They're going to watch Captain Phillips, and Deuce Staley's going to stand up in front and go, "I'm the captain now.
I'm the captain now. Look at me." But yeah, so I mean, that's where they're at. That's detrimental to any football team to start the season and just not have your coach. And I think I don't have them written in any order. So this probably is just a minor one in terms of all the reasons why it's bad. But if there's one knock on Doug Peterson, he is a player's coach, but not necessarily a coach's coach. You don't hear about the Doug Peterson coaching tree. Like guys aren't coming from Philadelphia and leaving because they're going on and being successful somewhere else as coaches. It's been, I believe this is year 5 with Peterson, and they're in year 5 of having a wide receiver coach. Like he develops players, but he's not developing coaches. Yeah, exactly. So now he's not there. So all these guys who having Jim Sorch is huge because he's great for the defensive coordinator role. He's not great for as a head coach role. We've seen it before, but at least he has some experience. But a lot of these guys turnover on the coaching staff again last year. They got rid of the offensive coordinator, another wide receiver coach, which has been a problem for the Eagles for years. And here we are without a head coach and just all this inexperience.
So you think like the power structure, it's just a full breakdown?
I think it is because Doug Peterson holds more power than most coaches do. Now, there's some coaches who double as the GM, and that's the utmost power. But in terms of the offense, I think it's just a bad year for you to lose the guy who calls the plays, scripts the offense. He's the offensive coordinator and the coach. Part of the reason why they were having trouble finding an offensive coordinator is because Doug Peterson isn't just the or not just the coach, but
He's the
also the
offensive
offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, why do you want to go there when Doug's running the show?
Exactly. Like, how can you advance if you can't prove that you can call plays? And now you're going to a system where you're not going to be calling the plays. And I get that. Like, I'm okay with Doug Peterson calling the plays because he's phenomenal at it. But if I'm an offensive coordinator, Philly's not going to be at the top of my list as a place to go.
Absolutely
But
not.
now you're in a situation where your play caller, the guy who scripts your offense, and your head coach all aren't here. You just brought in a new offensive coaching staff for the most part, aside from Deuce Staley and your offensive line coach. So now these new guys are just in charge.
Yep.
And for the whole class, just substitute teacher. So that worries me a lot too.
And that was probably the biggest advantage going into a season like this that the Eagles had in the NFC East. Because why? They were the only team with a returning head coach going into this season. And going into a season where no one knows what the hell is going to happen, having that continuity and that structure is huge, right? Mike McCarthy coming in, he just met the team today for the first time. Ron Rivera coming in, the Washington football team is a mess as it is. And Joe, whoever the heck his name is, doesn't matter, in New York, same thing. So that continuity of Doug Peterson, I mean, I don't want to say that puts the Eagles right into the same kind of stratosphere that the other teams acclimating to a new coach, because he's going to be back quickly. But it kind of drops that advantage down just a little bit.
It does. And that was a big thing over the offseason, is that there was no offseason. So these guys, and we talked about it, we were joking before that in the 5 months since Mike McCarthy has been named head coach, he and Dak Prescott haven't had a conversation with one another. Like, Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. Yeah. Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz don't really have to have conversations. I'm sure they do, but they can pick it up in August and be all right. So that is an advantage that the Eagles had. But now without your coach going into training camp, it's tough. And this year, it's especially tough, not only because there's new coaches, but this was the year where the Eagles took it and they were like, all right, we're going to do a youth movement, turn this roster over to get it younger so that we can compete into the future and this Super Bowl window doesn't close. So now you've got all these new faces, and that kind of plays into having like the inexperience of these coaches in the NFC East. Well, now the Eagles have all these players that are inexperienced, and the whole point of them like having that offseason experience with Doug Peterson, it's gone now. The one strength that they had.
So is that what that is telling me right there is that you need some of your big time vets like a Carson Wentz, Fletcher Cox to step up big time in the absence with the substitute teachers coming in. I mean, I don't want to say have to run the show, but they have to kind of control the crowd while the sub is there.
Absolutely. And people have said, this is just a theory, but people have said one of the reasons why Malcolm Jenkins is no longer here, going back to the movie Captain Phillips, the Eagles wanted to make it clear who the captain of the ship was. And it was Carson Wentz.
Yes.
Malcolm Jenkins has been the leader in that locker room. They brought Jason Peters back, but they're not even playing him in his natural position. I'm sure he'll assume a leadership role
right away.
He'll school that offensive line, especially Andre Dillard. But there is now a clear captain of the ship. They made it as obvious as possible. They shipped Nick Foles out. They extended Wentz. Just everything they've done since Foles left has been to display that Carson Wentz is the captain of the ship. He is the leader of the team. So this training camp, he's got to be the guy. And we were joking previously, like just texting back and forth. What happens if something like this happens during the season?
Exactly.
So a coach gets coronavirus. You're without your head coach.
Week 4.
Yeah. Say in September, one of these guys gets coronavirus. Then, like, does your whole coaching staff have to quarantine because they've been in meetings with the head coach? And then are you in a position where it'd be like a Jackie Moon thing where like Carson Wentz would then be the coach too? Like, would we get to that point? How's it work?
I mean, I'm guessing it would have to be something like that because like, so other players that have been put on this COVID reserve, right? Matthew Stafford's been put on, Gardner Minshew's been put on, Lane Johnson, but it came out that Lane Johnson does have coronavirus, right? But Matthew Stafford and Gardner Minshew, we don't know that for sure. It has been said that they either have it or they've been exposed to it and they need to quarantine. So what that tells me in my head is, yes, if your coach gets it and it's week 4 and your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator, they've all been in rooms together, putting the plan together, they've been exposed, right? So, and that goes vice versa. Like, what if your defensive coordinator gets it, but He's been in the rooms with the head coach. Does that mean the head coach may not have it, but he needs to quarantine? Can he quarantine up in the box? Like, what happens?
How do you handle it? Yeah, those all you do all week is sit in the film room and go over and have meetings, and you do defensive coordinator would meet with each group, like the secondary coach, cornerbacks coach, defensive line coach. They have one big meeting. They have a team meeting. Like
Yep.
these guys are all going to be together. Like if one contracts it, then pretty much everyone that's in that tiny film room is just going to have it. And then all of a sudden, like, do you just walk away without a coaching staff? Do they postpone a game if there's no coaches?
Now,
Do they run a charity where I get to call the play?
can you imagine? I mean,
That'd be
there's not going to be anybody in the stands anyway. So if there's ever a season to do something like that, it's this season, right? It's 2020.
Yes,
just text in your play. If you're the 47th texter in, your play is run.
Exactly. So season ticket holders, you can't go to the game, but you do get to call the plays.
You get to call one play.
You get one play, so don't screw it up.
What I would assume coaching staffs and organizations are smarter than me and you. Some maybe, some probably not. But
Cleveland, I don't know. I really don't.
Those guys, they're not doing anything right. But
yeah.
I mean, preemptively to this, I mean, they have to be thinking the same thing that we're talking about right now. So do you think heading into meetings, they're not going to be in small film rooms together? Like the head coach is going to be in his office and he's going to be on Zoom with the offensive coordinator in a different room watching film? Or are they going to be on StreamYard with the coach can play the video on and they're both sitting there in different rooms just for safety wise?
I like to think that they would do that and that the NFL has enough resources where you could be like, okay, you're in classroom B today.
Yes.
So go set up your teleprompter and coach is going to pop on the screen and make sure you're paying attention because he can see you. Basically like how you do like Zumba online with your gym instructor because you can't do your one-on-one fitness training without the gym open. It'd be just like that, except with NFL coaches. So I assume that's what they would have to do.
That's like a substitute teacher thing all over again. Are you working as hard when it's not right there and tangible and right in front of you and can touch you? Probably
and another
not.
thing, no. And another thing, if I know one thing about 55-year-old white guys, it's that they can't handle technology at all. Them having to do virtual workouts and virtual training is nearly impossible. They can barely open a laptop. We saw the GM of the Giants when he was doing the draft. He just had a giant binder. That was all he had. He was set up at a desk. There's a white wall behind him and just a giant binder.
My setup for this podcast is better than Gelman's draft setup was. Hands down.
Yours is way more intricate than his was. So
I have headphones, I got a microphone, I got a computer and an iPad. I am late. I'm in 2020. He's in 1934.
Yeah, he looked like he was doing SAT prep, not drafting the future of the New York Giants to surround Daniel Jones.
On top of not being able to handle technology, I mean, what do we always say about these coaches? They're football guys, right? And football guys got to be in the room. We can't do it over Zoom. That's not football. It's
not football.
It's a team game. Everybody's got to be together, and
you got to sweat on each other.
Like that's what I picture with some of these coaches and some of these players, that they're just gonna be like, we can't do football like this.
Yeah, they're just going to be like, it is what it is. We're just going to do it. But I think that's why we jokingly talked about an NFL bubble last week.
Yes.
And to an extent, like you're going to have to practice against one another. So you can't do everything virtual. Maybe coaches meeting sessions you could, but everyone's going to be on that practice field. We jokingly talked about an NFL bubble. I think you're getting close to that. If you didn't do an NFL bubble, you would be reliant on players basically quarantining themselves during the season, just going to practice, going to training, going to meetings, going home.
And that's it.
Nothing else. No extracurriculars. And that's how the MLB ran into problems, is because the Cardinals went out to the casino. The Marlins went out to the club
in Atlanta.
Yep. And then that's how they ended up in a situation where everyone ended up getting it. You have games postponed. The NFL, I think you got to have like a penalty system in place for players. You basically have to tell them, look, you need to quarantine at home.
If you don't, you're losing X in your salary.
Yeah, you either get fined or suspended or something like that.
And Goodell will have no problem doing that. We know that for sure.
Nope. Yeah, absolutely. Him, you know how he is, like the overseer of everybody. Like he has no problem. Like no one ever wins an appeal against the NFL.
No, the NFL is the shield.
Exactly. So I think unless they're going with our Hawaii bubble idea, which I think was fantastic.
It is fantastic.
It is fantastic still, and they might have to do it. The next best option and the one that's most realistic in their minds, my mind is still on Hawaii bubble, but I think you have to quarantine yourselves if you want to have a season.
So apparently this is what the Saints are going to be doing during training camp. I heard that today, that they're creating their own bubble, and the entire team, coaching staff, everybody is staying at a hotel. It's like 150 people, and you will be if you're not at practice in the facility, you're at the hotel. It's the whole team has that. I think that is the next best option, not only during training camp, but through the season.
Yeah.
Is it possible to keep these guys away from their families that long? Probably not. If that comes through, we're going to have a lot more guys opting out. I guarantee it. But realistically, for this to happen, if we can't bubble in Hawaii, which again we should, the best option I think would be these guys are quarantined, like the Dallas Cowboys. They can quarantine at the Star in Frisco. Like they have a hotel there. They have any kind of restaurant you want, their practice facilities there. You just quarantine the team and the coaches there all season. You got to stay here. And then they take their private jet to Philly. They get on the bus. They go right to the stadium. They play. They get right on their buses and back on their private plane to their quarantine.
And go right back home. Yep.
I feel like that's probably the only way this season happens without a Hawaiian bubble.
I agree. It's the reason why college football is not going to happen is because the NFL has a sense of control where they can do everything that you just said, and they have the resources to do it. Like you brought up the Cowboys, get on the private jet. When you get there, there'll be a meal for you. You can shower if you need to, and you can get back on a cushy private jet and fly back to your bubble. And there's no reason for you to leave outside of that bubble. In college, you've got all these players who have to go to class and sit around other kids who are going to go out to bars. They're going to go out and party. They're going to intermingle. They're going to be in entanglements, as Jada Smith said.
They're going to be on Tinder.
And exactly. And then they're going to come back and give it to the players. But the NFL, they have the ability to eliminate that issue. Yes. You got to control the controllables. The NFL has the ability to do it. The MLB has shown they haven't even tried. College doesn't possess the ability. So if you're going to do it without a bubble, that's how you have to do it.
It's like it's almost like a mini bubble. Like each team has their own mini bubble, and the only time they leave the mini bubble is during games, and that's it. And then they immediately go back to their bubble.
And they go right back to it. Exactly. So you can still travel, but you're just traveling from mini bubble to mini bubble.
And, like we said, football guys and team sport, these guys are around each other so much. I mean, I bet coaches would love it because coaches want as much hands-on time, and they know where their players are at all times, always. So if they know their players are in this hotel or in this facility 24 hours a day and they can't leave, and literally all they can do is play video games, eat, lift, and play football, that's a coach's dream.
You're right. That's a coach's dream. The old adage is always that coaches hate the off season because it's the one time where they don't have control of their players. And every off season we hear about some dumbass who is charged with there's an armed robbery charge this year. Like you're in the NFL making millions. What are you robbing someone with a gun? Like, what did you need from people that you could not possess?
So that's like the DUI situation with the NFL always blows my mind because the NFL literally has a service, which no questions asked. You call if you're drunk, they pick you up wherever you need to go and bring you home. Whenever, wherever, no questions asked.
The NFL has that?
Yes. So
they have like a VIP Uber.
Literally.
That's unreal.
So, but it's these guys' egos where they're like, no, I got to drive my Lambo no matter what. I've had 43 shots, but I'm good.
Yeah.
No, and just call the number.
And then you have weed in the car and then it just snowballs every single time. It happens all the time.
And not even off season, right? With coaches not having their hands on their players. Think about during the postseason, right? With the Giants going down to Miami on the boat.
They went on a boat. Yeah.
Literally on their bye week going into the playoffs. And then they went to Green Bay where it was 4 degrees after they got off the boat. They're like, what the hell happened? And Odell Beckham's the ball's like a rock hit him in the hands, can't catch a thing, and they're out of the playoffs. Like,
he had one catch. They got smoked. They've never been back to the playoffs since. It's the most Giants thing I've ever heard.
We just went from the coach's dream to the coach's nightmare in 2 seconds.
Yeah, for the coaches, they probably love this idea. Like you said, it just eliminates all the other issues that they have to worry about. So that they would be fine with this idea. Absolutely. I'm sure front offices would be as well. Players, not so much. But look, they're giving you an opt-out for a reason. It sucks that people have to use it. And a lot of guys who have used it for good reason.
Yes.
But this is, you're kind of limited in your options. We're at the point where we've kicked the can down the road as far as we can go as a country. And this is it. These are our options. We're not having fans. This is not going to be normal. And for the most part, it's going to suck. But at least we'll have football.
Yeah, and we just got the update from Adam Schefter that the opt-out deadline is now going to be this Thursday. You're probably listening to this. It's Tuesday, so we got 2 days left. Thursday, that the opt-out at 4 o'clock Eastern. So, I mean, we've already seen some play, like the Eagles lost Goodwin. The Broncos just lost their starting tackle. I think everyone on the Patriots, there's been 8 players that have opted out.
Patriots lost their team.
But they're still going to somehow do everything. Cowboys lost their fullback, James Olawale, which I actually love that he's not going to be there because I want 3 wide. I want everybody wide the entire. We don't need a fullback in. Give me Zeke on the field, Lamb. Give me everybody. I don't need a fullback. Okay, so now that's $1.75 million for this year. Use that money and go get Clowney. But we'll get onto that later. So, do you think Thursday we're going to see a flurry of opt-outs?
I do. I think it'll be similar to the trade deadline where there's rumors and there's all this buildup and everything like that. And really, it's only like 1 to 2 hours where things get crazy. It's like the middle of the afternoon, all these moves happen right before the deadline. It's like that for every sport, every single year. So I think having a deadline like this, I think people are going to wait up until the deadline because it gives them an idea. They can go to their training facilities. Training camps has started for everybody, even though practice hasn't. So they can go to their facilities, test it out, see how they feel, if they feel comfortable. If they don't, Thursday, say, all right, see ya.
I can't wait until just like the trade deadline. It's like 4:13, right? And everybody, like fans, are like, all right, we're good. We didn't lose anybody big. And then all of a sudden, breaking news: Saquon Barkley has opted out. We didn't get the news until, and then Giant fans just lose their mind,
lose their shit. Yeah, there's gonna be one more big name. I don't want to accuse anybody or predict because that's just a bad look to be calling people out like that for leaving. But I think we got one big name left where if they're gonna opt out, I can see it happening for sure.
I heard a conversation. I don't remember what radio station it was on today, but they were kind of doing like an opt out or cop out. Like, are some of these guys just copping out because, they think they're not going to make the team and now they just get to sit a year and train. And next year at this time, they're still going to be on the team, right? Their contract will just move a year. But that's such a touchy subject. Like you said, most guys, probably all the guys who have opted out are opting out for a legitimate reason, right? They have newborns. They've been trying to have kids and they've been having issues. Like, I will not knock one player for opting out this season. You can't.
No, yeah. So you'll hear every single time this has happened, you hear of a player opting out. And then like a few hours later, they explain why. And every time at first you're like, oh, I can't believe that guy did it. And then they put their Instagram post of like a paragraph explaining why. And you're like, all right, that makes a ton of sense. I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah, it's I don't think anybody can go after players.
Yeah, but I think it's a lot of veterans who have been there before. Yep. So, for instance, the Patriots, they're paid. They have 3 Super Bowl rings. They really have no motivation to play this season. I know some of those guys, they had outside circumstances as well. But I think being a veteran and having everything made already and having success already makes it so you can kind of opt out. Now, there's a lot of guys this offseason. Let's get into it. There's been a lot of shifting this offseason. So a lot of guys are going to stay in because they're with new teams.
Yes. Old faces in new places, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I've kind of been seeing some of the pictures that have been going out on Instagram. I think like NFL Instagram has been posting stuff and of new pictures of players. So let me get one from you that have you been checking out any of the players in the new jerseys?
I have seen. I know of everybody who switched teams. I've seen some jersey releases, not a ton, but I have a good idea.
So I have been looking, and I want to get from you one player that you think looks good in their new uniform,
Okay.
one player that you think just looks weird. It's just way too wild for you. And the player you feel like an old face in a new place that if we have football this year, which we will, is going to make the biggest impact for their team.
Gotcha. Well,
So
let's get it out of the way early. The weirdest one is Tom Brady.
Has to be, right?
They posted it for his birthday in his new uniform. It was incredibly strange, and this is the take that we've seen before, but let's just get it out of the way. It looks like Michael Jordan in a Wizards jersey. That's exactly what it looks like, and
100%.
we're living through that. That's got to be the weirdest one. We're going to be 20 years from now, and it'll be like Pat Mahomes Jr. balling out in the league, and we'll still be like, remember that weird year or
Tom
weird
Brady.
2 years where Tom Brady was a Buccaneer?
I would have to agree, and I'll just add on to that with Rob Gronkowski. He looks just as weird in the jersey, and putting the two of them together, and they're like talking back and forth on Instagram about I'm ready to play, and then Brady's like, "That's right, Robbie, we are going to play this year," and
We're
it's
gonna
like
do it.
it's just so awkward.
They're two awkward guys as it is, and then you add the new uniforms in. I don't think you can go anywhere else. We can try to be creative and try to come up with hot takes, but there's no need. That's the weirdest one, and it's going to be for decades.
I would say like a close kind of number two would be Phillip Rivers. I saw him in the Colts jersey, and it just, I mean, it is a little weird. He kind of looks like Andrew Luck, but older and no beard, and it's just confusing.
Yes, wait, but this is funny because you asked me to get one weird, one impactful, and one cool.
Yeah.
For some strange reason, I put down Phillip Rivers as the cool one.
Okay.
Because I think LA and San Diego just don't fit Phillip Rivers. Like,
no, he's got 19 kids from the
yeah,
same
exactly.
wife.
I think Indianapolis, for some reason, that blue uniform and just Indianapolis as a whole, it's just like a
lunch pail,
lunch pail, medium market where there's not too much going on. I think it's just perfect for Phillip Rivers. Like, I just seeing him in that uniform, I was like, this feels like it was meant to be for the past 2 decades. Since 2004, when he came in the league, he probably should have been with the Colts.
Can you go from like weirder kind of looking dudes though, from like Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck now to Phillip Rivers? They kind of like morph into sort of looking the same. You're completely right, because I remember with Peyton being there, he was always like lunch pail guy, kind of like he was always like funny, but then he went to Denver, and then he's on like Saturday Night Live, and he's doing commercials, and he completely came out of his box, out of his Indianapolis shell.
Yeah, he wasn't always that big media guy who you see doing the nationwide jingles at first. Like, he was just Peyton Manning, Indianapolis quarterback who throws a shit ton of touchdowns to Marvin Harrison, and that was it. And that's just what Indianapolis is. It's hard to market a star in Indianapolis, but that's what makes Phillip Rivers perfect. Yeah, exactly. Phillip Rivers is always, literally for 16 years, has been a solid B+. He has never led the team to a Super Bowl, but has always led them to playoff runs. He's always been the guy who's been pretty good, but never great. That kind of sums up Indianapolis as a whole, if you ask me.
100%.
So that was my cool one, quote unquote.
Cool, not so weird looking. I'm gonna go Teddy Bridgewater. I saw the picture of him in Carolina, and he looked solid in the black and the blue and the white, and I kind of digged it. You know, I feel like he looks better in the Carolina colors than he did for the Saints.
I agree. And also, it is really hard to pull off purple. So him being in a Vikings uniform, that does nobody justice. Kirk Cousins is perfect for Minnesota purple because that is just a match made in heaven. But the Panthers have such incredible uniforms. The Panther itself is a great logo. That black and that light blue together, that teal, I love it. I think I agree. That one, I don't know how much of an impact he'll have as a player, but it looks pretty cool as a jersey on him.
I do like their stadium too. It's got the city in the background, right? You're playing the game and you actually see Charlotte in the background. So I don't know how he's going to be impactful. I mean, but I didn't think he was going to be that impactful last year for the Saints either. And then Cowboys were 3-0, and then he just wiped the slate with them. So that was good.
Yeah. On a non-jersey related note, I feel like everyone who's followed Matt Rule during his career knows the journey that the Panthers are about to go on. They're probably going to be shit this year. It's going to be a disaster for 1 year where he does a complete roster turnover, brings in his own brand. Year 2, shaky, but you can see progress. By year 3, we're going to be talking about him as coach of the year, without a doubt. I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater is the guy, but that is the trajectory that we are always on with that guy.
I mean, and they could be complete shit this year, have Teddy Bridgewater be the guy for 2, maybe 3 years, and they're having Trevor Lawrence on their team.
Exactly.
Or
they can
Fields.
go out and get another quarterback. Yep. Absolutely.
100%. All right, so give me your biggest.
What's that?
I was going to say, give me your biggest impact.
DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't know if it's going to be close. I think that the key to the Eagles Super Bowl run in 2017 was getting Alshon Jeffrey.
Yes.
And for the Cowboys, I think they were dead in the water until they traded a first-round pick for Amari Cooper, and it just elevated Dak's game. And those were 2 young quarterbacks who were still trying to figure everything out. They got them a star receiver, and all of a sudden, everything was just so much simpler for them because they had a one-on-one matchup they could rely upon. DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray, I think they have the potential to be even better than Deshaun was with DeAndre Hopkins. I think the Cardinals are going to be scary. They're in a tough division, so I don't know if they're going to make too much noise. I don't know if they're going to be better than the Seahawks or the Niners. Rams aren't a slouch either. I love that combo. I think DeAndre Hopkins is the best, most impactful player that made a transition. The price tag that got them at was just ridiculously stupid.
Yes.
Good for them for making the move.
I mean, and he gets to play alongside the best wide receiver that's been in the game for, it feels like 300 years in Larry Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Right? Like
he is the redwood tree of the NFL. It just keeps growing. It's amazing. It's elegant, and it just never ends. And it's been old forever, but it's still here, and it's still great. Kicking, and it looks still great.
And it's like the 9th round of your fantasy draft, and he's sitting there, and you're like, I think maybe, okay. And then he just ends up on your fantasy team. You're not starting him, but there's always that week where he catches like 7 for 134 and 2 touchdowns, and you're like, why didn't I start him?
Exactly. It's crazy because he's been out of his prime for years, and every fantasy player has had that internal dilemma where you're like, okay, I know this isn't the Larry Fitzgerald that we're used to, but
it's Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald. Like, you're in the 10th round. Every guy has been in the 10th round. Like, all right, should I do it? All right, Larry Fitzgerald, put the sticker on the board, please.
you have like a definite starting running back, your RB2 sitting there, but you're like, but it's Larry Fitzgerald.
It's Larry Fitzgerald. He never drops a ball. If they throw it his way, he'll catch it. They just have to throw it to him. He'll get 5 targets.
And then you're in like week 7. You're like, why the hell didn't I take Eckler?
Yeah, exactly. Then there's some like Cortland Sutton pops up on the Broncos, and you're like, probably should have got a younger guy who's 25 and still in his prime.
Damn it. Well,
can I give you one that actually 2 that will impact the Eagles and the Cowboys the most?
Absolutely.
So they're on the same team. Can you guess? So 2 acquisitions made by the same team. Can you guess who they are?
Are they on either of our teams, or they're just going to impact our teams?
They are going to impact our teams. They're going to impact the NFC, but they're not on our teams. So one team picked up both of these guys, one on offense, one on defense.
In the NFC.
You can guess the team or the players, or both.
Is it Tampa?
That's actually a great one. That was the one that I think everyone's going to expect because we talked about Tom and Gronk reuniting there.
Yeah.
Same division, and we talked about them earlier.
Carolina?
How about the Saints getting Emmanuel Sanders and Malcolm Jenkins?
I keep forgetting that they got Emmanuel Sanders.
I know. I was thinking about that because we were planning on doing new faces new faces.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, who looks good in a jersey? Who has cool jerseys? I was like, okay, Saints have great jerseys.
Yep.
Then I was like,
Cowboys have
wait a
great
second.
jerseys.
I was like, wait a second. How did we let New Orleans, who's been in the playoffs for 4 straight years, get
Have Michael
Michael
Thomas.
Jenkins and Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they pair Michael Thomas with Emmanuel Sanders. They get their leader back on defense. They are one team that we should be scared of that's not in our division.
That is absolutely. I can't believe that's one of those things. It's like, how did that get past my brain? Like, why didn't I think about that? And he is going to look damn cool in those Saints jerseys.
Yeah, there's something about the gold where if you look bad in it, then you probably just aren't cool. You know,
I mean, who do you give me right now? Who you think looked the coolest of all time in a Saints jersey?
the coolest of all time in a Saints jersey. I'm getting Joe Horn in my head because he had the
That's
best.
exactly where I'm going. Joe
Yes,
Horn.
all right, yeah, let's go.
Can't be anybody else but Joe Horn. The flip phone, like he just was cool.
Yeah, it was such a great celebration. When I think of Saints jersey, that's one of the things that I think of is just that celebration with Joe Horn.
Joe Horn cell phone or T.O. Sharpie?
T.O. Sharpie, because I think the lore of T.O. elevates it. You know, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. If they keeping him out, it really reflects poorly on the NFL Hall of Fame writers. I think that he just did so much shit where you're like, only T.O. could get away with this.
I agree. I mean, playing a game too with a Sharpie in your sock is just, I mean, that's one of the most T.O. things ever. But you got to think about Joe Horn. He planned on scoring a touchdown, right? But he didn't know what end zone he was scoring. So was there a cell phone in just both end zones? There had to be, right?
There had to be, but it's such a good question. I feel like it would make
just move it every quarter. Did he have a little minion like when they switch? He had the guy just go get the cell phone and move it.
He had to, but you would never get away with that in today's day and age because we'd be like, why is this 22-year-old kid picking up the pylon or whatever and
never
taking a phone and putting it underneath and everything like that? You can never get away with it. So I guess that adds to the lore of that one too. So maybe that one was cooler than T.O. I guess overall T.O. had the best celebrations. Word to Chad Ochocinco as well.
Yes.
But yeah, the Joe Horn one, iconic.
All right, I'm going to give you my impact player. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is probably the right pick. It's maybe the only pick, but I'm going to go Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. I mean, that's another one of those things I keep forgetting that he's there. He's going to play with Cole Beasley in the slot, who's just going to eat up catches, and it's going to open up the field for him. And Josh Allen has a cannon, and Stephon Diggs loves to go deep. So I feel like he's going to be impactful, especially in the fall. Once the winter comes up there, I don't know so much. But I feel like he's one of those dudes that just he's on a mission right now to prove something, right? He feels like he was disrespected in Minnesota. He didn't like playing with Thielen. I don't care what anybody says. He wants to be the guy. And besides Cole Beasley, I mean, he can be the guy in Buffalo. And imagine being the guy that brings Buffalo back. Another pretty badass jerseys, and I think he will look pretty sweet in the Buffalo jersey too.
I think so too. Yeah, anyone who is freed from the Minnesota purple goes on to great things. Like you automatically get more cool points once you leave Minnesota. That's a great pick though, and on paper it's a match made in heaven because, like you said, Josh Allen has a cannon. Yep. The one knock on him has been, okay, he can throw it 80 yards. Can he put it on a receiver in stride when he throws it 80 yards? Yep. But he really hasn't had a deep threat to tell. I know they signed John Brown last offseason, but they really haven't had a receiver where you're like, okay, he is a stud number one, and he'll
go get it.
Yeah. Now they have a guy, like you said, who will just go get it. They have a bona fide number one. I think it's the key to every young quarterback, getting them somebody who can win a one-on-one matchup every single play. It's 3rd and 8, and they know where they can go with the ball. And even though the defense knows where they're going with the ball, they can still complete the pass. It's just so key for the development of a young quarterback. And Josh Allen got his guy.
I mean, that's exactly the reason why the Cowboys gave Amari Cooper $100 million.
Yes.
They still look at Dak as a developing young quarterback, and he needs that.
And they didn't have a crystal ball and didn't realize that CeeDee Lamb would be sitting there at 17 because there are 16 morons who run NFL franchises.
I can't wait to see him on the field.
I think what's funny about the first 2 episodes is how not nonchalant, but just the lack of aggression we've had for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wait for the first CeeDee Lamb touchdown for the Cowboys.
It is.
I will be screaming into this microphone.
I can't. You know what I need to do? I need to go back and find the video of me and you when he was drafted and put that up on our Twitter, because that was just a video for the ages.
That's foreshadowing of the pods to come once the season actually kicks off and we're playing real football.
I mean, when the first time in Philly, when CD has 8 for 162 and 2 touchdowns in a 24-17 victory for the Cowboys, it's going to be heated.
I remember the game where I think Malcolm Jenkins and Des Bryant got in a fight on the field pregame. I think it was the same game. And then Des had 3 touchdowns that night.
I was at that game.
Were you? Yeah. See, if we would have recorded a podcast shortly after that, I wouldn't have made it 10 minutes.
I believe that game, the Cowboys went up like 21-0 quick. The Cowboys also had a kickoff and nobody on the Eagles fielded it, and they just got it at like the 7-yard line. And Dallas went up like easy, but then Philly came back, but then Dallas won the game. That was a Sunday night game in Philly.
It was a Sunday night game. I think it was during the Chip Kelly era, so kind of expect things like that for no one to just pick up the kickoff.
I was also at the Cowboys-Eagles game, Nick Foles' first game, when Vic had the concussion, I believe, and Foles came in.
I remember that. Yeah. See, I can't wait for the podcast we're doing when we're recording after games like that.
Exactly.
That will be insane.
It's going to be delicious. Delicious. So we actually have a sponsorship going on, huh?
Yes. Pretty excited about it. We didn't get to introduce in the first one, but definitely want to get it out there for the second one. So if you want to win and make money, the partnership that we're doing, we're working with Bovada. So we're going to put our link in the podcast description. It's going to be in the tweet that we're promoting the podcast with. So it's pretty simple. It's for new users. If you haven't used Bovada before, I'll attest to it in a minute. It's great. Use that link, sign up, and start making money. It's that simple with Bovada. There's no catches, nothing like that. You can sign up, no entry fees, nothing. Just get started. Use that link that we're going to promote. And honestly, I don't even need a Bovada script. I have personally used Bovada. The first bet that I ever placed and won was with Bovada. They will always have a special place in my heart. Back when Kentucky was undefeated in the Devin Booker, Trey Lyles, Willie Cauley-Stein days, I, at the beginning of March Madness, bet on Duke to win it all.
Okay.
They won it all with Jahlil Okafor. Cashed my bet with Bovada. They paid it out. It was amazing. I can personally attest Bovada, first place ever I bet with. They will always have a place in my heart, so I would strongly recommend it. And you can use that link. We'll be promoting it everywhere that we promote the podcast.
I mean, you love making money for work, but there's nothing like making money on bets.
Right.
It's just like, even if it's like $1,000 in your paycheck, right? But then you won $1,000. It's like you won $2,000. It's not compatible making money and winning money.
The competitiveness, everyone's getting back into betting now because we have sports back. There's the competitiveness in the game, and then there's the competitiveness of just watching like individual things within the game so that your bets cash. There's nothing like that feeling. I'm going to use the link as soon as we're done here, and just so I can scroll through like I like to do. I love looking at all the bets
right now. Clicking the link.
There you go. Once football season starts, it's going to be amazing. There's nothing like betting on that first weekend of NFL football with that full slate. You're like, all right, here's the 1:00 games. Here's the 4:00 games. What crazy parlay am I going to make?
And I got 3 TVs going, red zone on one, the other game on another. Oh, God. It's just going to be. See, again, baby Jesus, we need football.
We need football so that we can bet on Bovada and make crazy football parlays.
Now, before we get into Birds versus Boys real quick, I want to do one more that it could impact them either, signing or against. So Antonio Brown finally finds out he got a 8-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the league, with all his crazy videos and everything that he was doing, losing his mind. But the suspension will not start until he is on a team. So the question I have for you is, will he be signed sooner, later, or not at all?
I say later.
Okay.
I will even go as far as to give you a team.
I was going to give a team as well, so I can't wait for this.
Perfect. Okay, let's see if we match up. I'll give you mine first. Let's see if we agree. I think he would go to Seattle.
That's exactly what I was going to say. See?
This debate show is off to a
Yeah, this is Birds equal
we agree
boys.
on everything. It's crazy because we legitimately did not talk about that before we started recording.
I mean, Seattle's perfect for him.
It is. It really is.
You put AB with Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf.
So yeah, their trio would consist of DK Metcalf, who's poised for a huge sophomore season. You've got Tyler Lockett, who's been reliable, and then Antonio Brown. That's just a match made in heaven. I think it's in a place where he could go. He needs structure wherever he goes. That he didn't get in Oakland.
Pete Carroll knows how to deal with bad boys, per se. I mean, he does not back down from personalities.
No, they've always been able. They've always taken chances. Josh Gordon was the most recent example, a receiver who's been suspended before. They brought him back after suspension and brought him right into their system. And I know he got caught up in his own issues, but they were even talking about bringing him back now. Yeah. So I can definitely see AB going there. I think Geno Smith put out a tweet and it was like, "See you soon" or something like that. I believe he's the backup quarterback for Russell Wilson right now. I thought that might be a little bit of foreshadowing. I think it takes one receiver going down for teams to start to consider it, but with that 8-game suspension, it's kind of tough to replace because you're trying. If somebody goes down, whether it's coronavirus or an injury, you're going to try to replace them on the fly, not 8 weeks from that point.
Yep. And that's why if I'm Seattle, I'm doing it right now, right? Now we know there's a clear expectation of a suspension, right? It was kind of in limbo. People thought he was going to get suspended, but they didn't know. They didn't know how long. So we know it's 8 games, right? So I'm signing him now. I'm getting him in the facility, but then he shuts it down for 8 weeks because you don't want to sign him like week 9 because then what? It means nothing to you until the end unless you make a playoff run.
Exactly. So it makes sense to sign him now, and you know ahead of time you will not have him for the first 8 games. And
you're prepared for that.
You're prepared for that. They're a system where they can survive without him for 8 weeks, and he just plays the back half of the stretch. He gets to learn the offense. He gets to learn the culture, which is more important for him than the playbook. He walked in and played with the Patriots 3 days in and scored a touchdown. The talent was always there. He needs to figure out structure at some point.
And I feel like, again, this would be Pete Carroll's dream if they had their own bubble, right? And AB is in the bubble, quarantined with the team, structure. Now, that's the question. Hold on. Let's say they sign him, right? And they do these little bubbles. Does he get to live in the bubble when he's suspended?
I feel like he can't. Because when you're suspended, you can't be at the team
right? You can't be in the facility. But what if they put him in his own little room, like off?
If coronavirus wasn't a thing, they should stick him in a little room in a hotel for 8 weeks. So just so he can't fuck it up in the next 2 months.
He gets no cell phone. He can play Madden. He gets an Xbox, a TV, and meals.
And you can go down to the gym.
And that's it.
Don't fuck it up.
That's it. So, all right. Can we get some sort of debate going here? Let's get into a little bit of the Birds versus Boys here.
Let's get it.
Before we get into like some debate stuff, I'm just gonna go Cowboys real quick. You mentioned earlier Mike McCarthy and Dak. So Mike McCarthy's been the Cowboys head coach for months now. He became the head coach right before the pandemic, and no one knew this was going to happen. But even before the pandemic, he went weeks, if not months, without ever talking to his QB1, right? And the QB1 that's been going through a contract negotiation, a QB1 that was franchised. So he never had a conversation with Dak. He never really got to meet any of the players. But this week, finally at the Star, Mike McCarthy met his players, introduced himself. I'm excited for the McCarthy era. I really am. I feel, again, the word structure that you use for AB, this Dallas Cowboys team, that's exactly what they need is structure, right? Jason Garrett was a puppet. We've always known he's been a puppet. Mike McCarthy's going to give this team no shit, right? There's not going to be D linemen left and right that are getting DUIs and getting suspended. Like, this team is going to come to play. The talent's there. Again, just like AB, there's no question about that. This team has a ton of talent, especially on offense. They just need a leader of men to take them over the hump. And that's what Mike McCarthy is. He finally gets to meet the team. And now finally, hopefully, he has a discussion with his QB1 too.
Them getting on the same page would be great. But
For me,
like you said, Jason Garrett was just a plain bagel, just so boring and did nothing. He was so useless.
There we go. We're going 2 tight end set, run it up the gut.
Yeah, it was so boring. Now, I'm split 50-50 on Mike McCarthy working out with the Cowboys. They definitely need to make a coaching change from Jason Garrett. My issue with Mike McCarthy, if there is one, in Green Bay, he was a great coach, and then things got stale. It was like he didn't evolutionize with the game. And they said that he took a whole year and he just like sat in a cave, like in The Dark Knight Rises, when Batman just goes and lives in that cage and rehabs his back. He did that, but he watched NFL film.
Well, he created his own coaching staff, and like they literally coached through. They had their staff, and they coached through the whole season.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my thing is, okay, you went into this cave and like mock coached for a year so that you could be a better offensive mind and come out of it more creative. Is that just blowing smoke, or did you actually learn from it? Because there's been so many times where we're like, hey, he's a changed man. This is going to be different this time. And then you're like, why are you running the same plays that weren't working 3 years ago? So is it going to be new? Did you evolutionize with the game? Or are you going to fall into the Jason Garrett where it's like you have become so predictable, it is painful to watch? I'm kind of split 50-50 on how it goes.
So I'm a little nervous too because going back to Green Bay, they said when he was calling the plays and completely in charge of the offense, that's when he thrived, right? It was when he took over, gave play calling away and kind of took over duties of just overseeing the team. That's kind of when he got a little more stale. Things started kind of hitting the wall. So coming to Dallas after being in the Batcave for a year, I fully expected him to take over play calling because he said he will never give up play calling again. But
I won't need it.
But he's keeping Kellen Moore around as the offensive coordinator. Apparently, Kellen Moore is going to be calling plays. He loved what Kellen Moore was doing as a first-time offensive coordinator last year. Yes, the Cowboys racked up a ton of yards, but against bad teams. So that is my biggest question mark: is how that duo is going to work out. Because if I'm Jerry Jones and I'm paying Mike McCarthy to be the head coach and he's an offensive guru, I want Mike McCarthy calling the plays.
It's dangerous to have a tug of war like that, where you bring in this new coach and he wants to be the guy. And he has said, I am a changed man so that I can be the guy once more. And you have a guy from a previous staff who's there, who everybody respects and everybody knows, and who has called plays before and once
played for this team.
Yes, and played for this team. He helps develop the quarterbacks and works with the quarterbacks. You can see how that would be a clash, how there could be a clash coming. I can definitely see that going wrong. That you can't have two captains of a ship. There's never been, remember in The Office when they did co-managers? How did that work out?
Never worked out well.
It never works out.
I'm the assistant regional manager.
Yes, there's not.
The assistant to the assistant regional manager.
Assistant to the assistant regional manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's never two CEOs of a company for a reason. That is the issue that they may run into down the road.
So, I mean, I'm excited. Could it be some blind excitement just because it's not Jason Garrett? Of course, I'm even more excited that Jason Garrett is in New York now because I can't wait to see them deal with Jason Garrett now. But it is going to be interesting to see the dynamic of Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore and how the play calling goes.
I agree. I hope it's a disaster and they both fail and get fired, but that's just me.
Appreciate that. All right. We had a question come in on Twitter, Stevie Stats, and this is kind of a, off the field question debate between the Cowboys and Eagles, and it kind of spurred my mind. I liked it because Dallas Goedert got knocked out in a bar in South Dakota or North Dakota or one of the Dakotas. So the question is, who would win in a bar fight? The Dallas O-line or the Eagles D-line? I'll let you go first.
Obvious. Eagles D-line. I could even shorten my answer. Fletcher Cox would win a fight against the Dallas offensive line probably by himself. The guy's an animal. I feel like it's just like showing up to a fight of common men, but Iron Man's on your team. That's pretty much how it would go. Brandon Graham is so nice. I just can't see him being in a fight because he just want to joke around the whole time.
Yeah,
Fletcher
but
Cox would be fighting
guys,
people.
come on.
Yeah, he'd be laughing the whole time. Fletcher Cox would be fighting off 3 guys. He'd be fighting Zach Martin and 2 other guys at the same time. And then Brandon Graham would be like talking to a backup center or somebody like that. Like that's just how that fight would go. I'm trying to think who else would be great in the fight. Derek Barnett, I feel like could fight. He has been in trouble for cheap shots before.
I mean, he killed a man in Green Bay last year.
Derek Barnett, yeah, he almost killed that Packers guy one time. Yeah, so
Darren Williams or whatever his name was.
Yeah. Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams. Yeah,
that was the first play of the game, and it was just like the most obvious cheap shot. I was like, Derek, what are you doing? But in a fight, I am absolutely taking the Eagles. Thanks in large part to Fletcher Cox. And 2, we can finally utilize Derek Barnett's one and only strength, which apparently is dirty play.
All right, I see you, but I'm going to call you. I think Fletcher Cox is an animal, and I think Derek Barnett is a cheap son of a bitch. But, I mean, we have some beef on this Dallas O-line and some mean beef, okay? Zach Martin I feel like he's done it before. He can just hold Fletcher Cox up against a wall while everybody else, and then the rest of the line can just do damage against everybody else. La'el Collins is an animal, okay? Have you seen him run blocking where he is 38 yards downfield just shoving people, okay? La'el Collins was born to fight, okay? He will just maul people. Now, Connor Williams, I hope he just goes in the corner and cries because he's about my size, and I don't feel like the man knows how to fight. He's from Texas, so maybe he does. Maybe he'll bring a gun to the fight, but we don't need any of that kind of stuff. And then you throw Tyron Smith, who, again, he's kind of like Larry Fitzgerald. He's like the redwood tree, too, where he's just been here forever. He's not in his prime anymore, but he's still strong as a mother. He's mean as anything, and he'll be doing the same thing La'el Collins will be doing. So, Joe Looney, again, he's kind of that's who it would be. It would be Joe Looney, who's technically our new center, and Brandon Graham. They would just be laughing together in the corner, and they wouldn't even be fighting. They would be ordering a beer and talking about God knows what. And I think La'el Collins is the real underdog here, who is just going to mop the floor with everyone.
I could definitely see that. If there was one guy who was an X factor like Fletcher Cox, it'd be La'el Collins. I could see La'el Collins killing a guy. But I did not think that sentence through before I said
with a trident.
Given previous history, I did not think that one through. But I do think that he'd be an animal. I just think that the Eagles have so much depth. Like Javon Hargrave, he would smash a guy. And Malik Jackson. The one strength of our team is defensive line, so we can just keep throwing big dudes at you. It'd be unreal. It'd be like that scene in iRobot where the robots are just marching down the street.
They just keep coming.
They just keep on coming. And there's nothing you can really do about it. They're pretty much indestructible. I feel like that's how our defensive line would go. It's the one main strength of the team.
I don't want to say I agree with you because I'm sick of agreeing with you. So I'm just not going to agree with you. And I'm going to say La'el Collins is just going to kill people in a bar fight. Not literally.
How about this? If it comes down to it for the division, La'el Collins versus Fletcher Cox, cage fight. That's just how we're going to decide.
I'm all in on that.
Yes. I'm pretty sure Fletcher Cox, like he's a big hunter. I think he like wrestles hogs and shit. Like he's like country strong. There's nothing crazier than country strong.
Well, that's La'el Collins. He's South Country strong, Louisiana strong too. Those, Coach O strong.
Coach O strong, yeah. And Cox is from Mississippi, so that would be the matchup of the ages, the heavyweight matchup of all time.
I'm gonna throw it up on our Twitter this week, and we'll see where people go.
I would love that debate. That is one of the debates where, without football going on, we need something to debate, and I think that one could get pretty feisty. In terms of just like anytime you're talking about fighting, it gets testosterone going, so people are gonna get all fired up about it.
All right, well, we're 1 week closer, hopefully, to football. Hopefully, the more we get into these episodes, we can talk less and less about coronavirus. Probably not.
Yep, I think we're 1 week closer to football and 2 weeks further away.
But if there's anything we can ask NFL is one. Find a way, right? You build it, we will come. Hawaii is a great option, or mini bubble each team. We have solved the problems here. Implement it.
We should be on the Corona task force for the NFL. I think we'd get shit done
right now.
We joke around half the time like Brandon Graham in a fight, but the other
but
half,
we'll get
I feel
it
like
done.
we'd be pretty productive. Shit would be done. But yeah, so I think I have one goal for this week between now and next show. I'm going to create a prayer, an NFL prayer,
Okay.
that we can say at the end of every show so that we have
Love
a
it.
season. And I
Love
think
it.
that'll be my goal for next week. But aside from that, it's just let's have a safe week. We'll see what happens Thursday with the opt-outs, but hopefully that's just we've reached the end of guys testing positive for coronavirus, and we'll keep on keeping on.
And if we do have, this is our promise to you, if we have a crazy opt-out day, right, on Thursday, Aidan and I will record a quick podcast Thursday night, just an opt-out special for you.
Around the coronavirus pandemic special.
Yes. Yes. Breaking news. Dun, dun, dun.
That's a good idea. I'm with that. All right.
That's exactly why you need to follow us on Twitter, because we'll announce things like that. Birds vs. Boys Pod on Twitter. I am KMess, KMess22 on Twitter.
I'm Aidan _34 _powers. And make sure to follow the Twitter page for the podcast as well, like KMess said. And don't forget to leave 5 stars and subscribe on Spotify and on iTunes podcasts.
And as always, we are brought to you by Branded Sports, thebrandedsports.com, branded_sports on Twitter. And thanks to our guys, Vince and Eddie, producing in the background.
We'll see you guys either next week or possibly Thursday.
See ya.